She came to drop off a pair of shoes, but never made it back home. She was shot and in front of her sisters by the man who claimed to love her. But what really happened behind those closed doors? What made him snap? Or was this planned all along? She was only 28, a mother, a daughter, and someone who just wanted peace. But on a quiet day in Las Vegas, her life ended with a bullet to the chest, fired by someone she trusted. This is the story of Ketora Denise Feazell, a young woman whose name should have never been a headline. And before you say just another crime story, there's a lot more you haven't heard. So stay with me. Before we dive deeper into what really happened that day, if you believe stories like Ketora's need to be told and not forgotten, tap that subscribe button and turn on the bell, because these are the stories the world needs to hear. What you're about to learn will shock you. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at love the same way again. Ketora Denise Feazell was only 28 years old when her life was stolen. She lived in Las Vegas, Nevada, the city of lights, casinos, and constant energy. But for Ketora, life wasn't about gambling or glamour. She was just trying to build a future, care for her child, and keep her peace in a world that can be so loud and cruel. She was deeply loved by her family, especially her two sisters, who were right there in her final moments. Imagine that, being with your sister, watching her take her last breath. That kind of pain doesn't fade. She was described by loved ones as sweet but not naive, strong but always smiling, the kind of woman who gave people chances even when they didn't deserve them, the kind of woman who didn't like drama but always seemed to get pulled into it, especially when it came to love. Ketora had a young child, someone who now has to grow up without a mother. That's the part that stings the most. A child who will one day ask, "What happened to Mommy?" And how do you even begin to answer that? She wasn't famous. She didn't go viral. She was just trying to make it, like millions of other women do every single day. She had responsibilities, bills, a child, and like many women her age, she also had love in her life, the kind of love that starts sweet, but over time turns confusing, toxic, maybe even dangerous. She was in a relationship with a man named Marvin Simmons, 31 years old. People said they were off and on. One day good, the next day not so much. But like many people in love, she gave him more chances than he deserved. Why? Because Ketora believed people could change, because she saw the good in him, even when the bad was showing. Because when you're young, and you're in love, and you have a child, walking away isn't always easy. Let's be real. Sometimes the biggest red flags don't show up as violence. They show up as jealousy pretending to be care, control pretending to be love, anger that always ends with, "I'm sorry, it won't happen again." And if you've ever been there, you know, it's not black and white. So ask yourself, have you ever stayed with someone longer than you should have, hoping they'd change? Have you ever thought love meant sacrificing your peace? Because that's where Ketora was, stuck between love and survival. And sadly, she didn't make it out. What makes this story even more painful is how normal her final day started. March 7th, 2022, a Monday. She wasn't looking for a fight. She didn't go to Marvin's house to start problems. She just wanted to drop off a pair of shoes, that's all, a quick stop. But deep down, maybe she felt something was off, because she didn't go alone. She brought her two sisters with her. Think about that for a second. If you were just dropping something off to your boyfriend, would you bring backup? Was she scared or just being cautious? Either way, it shows you this wasn't just a regular relationship. Something had already gone wrong before that day, and she might have known it. But she still went. Why? Because she didn't expect to die that day. Because she still trusted him. Just enough. This is the part people skip. They go straight to the crime. But if you don't understand who Ketora was, then you'll never understand what was truly lost. She wasn't perfect. No one is. But she was trying, and she was surviving, and she was doing what millions of other women do every single day, putting faith in someone who didn't deserve it. and that faith cost her everything. Ketora Denise Feazell was involved with a man named Marvin Simmons, 31 years old, from the same Las Vegas area. They were romantically involved, not married, not just friends. It was a full relationship, the kind where people knew them as a couple. To outsiders, it may have seemed normal, but behind closed doors, it was anything but. According to reports and witness statements, their relationship had a long history of tension, arguments that kept coming back, emotional stress that never really went away, and a pattern where Ketora would leave, and somehow, always come back. Why? Because that's what toxic love does. It pulls you in, convinces you this time will be different, and then traps you in a loop. Let's break this down. Marvin Simmons wasn't just a bad boyfriend. He showed textbook signs of a man dealing with control issues, unresolved anger, possessive tendencies, and possibly even narcissistic traits. He reportedly had another child with a different woman, someone who was also present at his house the day Ketora died. Imagine the emotional battlefield that creates. A man trying to juggle two women connected to him through children, women who have to deal with each other, despite the jealousy. And Marvin playing both sides, feeding them promises but also creating chaos. Now imagine you're Ketora, you're young, a mother, trying to keep the peace, but also trying to hold on to love, even if it's breaking you. The biggest weapon Marvin had wasn't his gun, it was the way he played with her heart. Marvin had already shown signs. He didn't like when Ketora talked to other men. He didn't like when she didn't listen. He had a temper, the kind that flared up quickly and didn't calm down easy. Those close to Ketora said there were tensions even before March 7th. They'd had verbal fights, and things were said that cut deep. But like many women in love, Ketora believed he could change, because it didn't start with violence. It started with apologies, with "you know I love you," with "don't leave me." And when someone you care about says they'll do better, sometimes you believe them. Ketora had made the decision to drop something off, a pair of shoes, to Marvin's house. But instead of going alone like she might have done before, she brought her sisters. That wasn't by accident. That's protection. That's what women do when they know a situation might be dangerous, but they still feel obligated to go. Why didn't she just block him? Why not cut him off for good? Because it's never that simple. Maybe she was scared of what he'd do if she ghosted him. Maybe she still hoped to co-parent peacefully if they had future ties. Maybe, and this is the hard part, she still loved him. Love doesn't always fade when the fear begins. Sometimes they exist side by side, and that's the most dangerous kind of love there is. What we've learned from this case, and from other cases like it, is that men like Marvin can't handle rejection. They see a woman leaving as disrespect. They see boundaries as threats. And when their control starts slipping away, they snap. They don't just want to be loved, they want to be in charge of how and when they're loved. And if they can't have that, they'd rather see it destroyed. The day she drove to that house, she didn't know she was walking into a storm, but the clouds had already been gathering. Have you ever loved someone who made you feel small just to feel big themselves? Have you ever ignored your gut because your heart was too loud? How many more women have to die before we take emotional abuse seriously, not just physical? It was late on the night of March 7th, 2022, just before 10 p.m., when Ketora and her two sisters pulled up to a quiet home on Jamestown Square Avenue in northwest Las Vegas. It was supposed to be quick, just a simple stop to drop off a pair of shoes, but everything about that day felt off. Ketora pulled up to Marvin Simmons' house, somewhere in northwest Las Vegas. The neighborhood probably looked like any other. Quiet streets, people going about their business, no warning signs that someone's life would end here. She wasn't alone. Two of her sisters came with her, likely because they already knew what Ketora wouldn't say out loud, that something about Marvin had become unpredictable, that lately his energy was heavier, that the arguments weren't just verbal, they were emotional hurricanes, and nobody knew when the wind would shift. Maybe they had a bad feeling. Maybe they were just being protective. Either way, thank God they were there. But what they didn't expect was who else was inside. As Ketora approached the house, things took a turn. Inside the home was another woman, Marvin's other baby mama, 2 women, 2 mothers of his children, in the same house at the same time. And only one of them had been invited. Now let's pause. How would you feel if you walked into your man's house and found another woman, a woman you've already had tension with, sitting comfortably, like she belonged there? Would you stay calm? Would you walk away? Or would your heart begin to race, knowing something ugly was about to unfold? Witnesses say there was a verbal argument. Things escalated quickly. Marvin was yelling. The women were exchanging words. The whole energy shifted into chaos. Voices got louder. Accusations flew. Pride flared. Ego ignited. This wasn't about shoes anymore. This was about disrespect, territory, and emotions that had been building up for too long. But Ketora, she didn't want to fight. She wasn't there for that. She was trying to leave, to protect her peace, to walk away before things got worse. She turned around, walked back to her car with her sisters, and got inside. She was ready to drive off. But Marvin wasn't ready to let her go. That's the moment everything shifted. He walked outside. He didn't say much. He wasn't crying or pleading. Instead, he had a gun, a .40 caliber Smith Wesson. He didn't wave it around. He didn't make a dramatic scene. He just raised it and started firing. 7 shots, 7 bullets aimed at a car full of women. Let that sink in. He didn't fire into the air. He didn't try to scare them off. He fired directly at them, at the cars, with full intention to hurt. And one of those bullets pierced through the metal, through the window, and struck Ketora right in the chest. Her sisters screamed. Blood was everywhere. 911 was called. Panic, chaos, confusion. Ketora's body went limp in the seat, and the man who claimed to love her just stood there, as if the damage he had done hadn't fully registered yet, or maybe it had, and he just didn't care. Let that image sit with you. A young woman slumped over in the front seat, her sisters begging her to hold on, a gun still hot in the hands of the man she once trusted. Moments later, the ambulance rushed her to University Medical Center, but it was too late. Ketora Denise Feazell, age 28, was pronounced dead, and with her died all her dreams, all her plans, all the chances she never got to take. She didn't get to tuck her child in that night. She didn't get to explain what happened. She didn't get to say goodbye. Ketora's sisters were screaming. One of them was on the phone with 911, trying to explain what just happened. Their voices cracked with panic. Their hands were shaking. Blood was on their clothes. And in the middle of all of this, Marvin Simmons stood there, calm, like a man who had already decided what the ending would be. He didn't cry. He didn't run. He didn't fall to his knees in regret. Instead, he told police exactly what he did. When officers arrived, he admitted it. "I fired at a crowd of people," he said. "I was mad." Just like that. No excuses, no breakdown, no, "I didn't mean to." Just a cold, simple truth. He shot at people he once called family because he was angry. Let that sink in. A man pulled out a loaded gun and opened fire because of a heated argument, and in his mind, that made sense. Where does that kind of thinking come from? That's the psychological weight we have to sit with. What kind of man grabs a gun over an argument? What kind of man feels so threatened, so disrespected, that he's willing to end a life rather than lose control? That's not love. That's not heartbreak. That's power and ego wrapped in emotional immaturity. People like Marvin often struggle with fragile masculinity. They see being told no as disrespect. Unhealed trauma. They never learned to process pain without violence. Control addiction. They treat relationships like possession, not partnership. And when they feel that control slipping, even just a little, their mind goes into fight mode. But unlike most people, Marvin didn't yell and storm off. He picked up a gun and ended everything. Police arrested Marvin Simmons on the spot. They didn't have to chase him. They didn't need surveillance footage. They didn't have to piece it together. He gave them everything. He was charged with murder. discharging a firearm into an occupied vehicle, use of a deadly weapon. The court denied him bail, and to this day he remains behind bars awaiting full prosecution. But for Ketora's family, that's not justice. That's not closure. That's just survival. What her sisters saw. They watched it all happen. They watched their sister take her last breath. They watched the man who pulled the trigger stand there like it was nothing. They were with her when she died, and that image will live in their minds forever. Can you imagine being the one to hold your sister's hand as her body goes cold? How do you explain that pain? How do you move on from something that vicious, that senseless, that fast? What kind of world are we living in where men shoot the women they say they love, and then calmly admit it like it's nothing? How do you even begin to rebuild your life after witnessing something like this? Is it enough to lock him away, or is there more we should be doing to stop this kind of violence before it happens? And what about Ketora's child? That little one doesn't know any of this yet. Too young to understand what happened, too innocent to carry this weight. But one day, they'll ask. One day, they'll want answers. And what do you say? Mommy went to drop off some shoes and never came back? That child didn't just lose a parent. They lost memories that will never happen. First day of school hugs, birthday surprises, graduation photos, late-night talks, future weddings, future grandkids, everything. All gone, because one man couldn't control his anger, and the world just keeps spinning, another name, another woman, another funeral. But Ketora Denise Feazell is not just a headline. She was real, and she mattered. This didn't start with a gun. It started with a word, a comment, a threat, a slap that wasn't reported, a door slammed too hard, and by the time the gun showed up, it was already too late. Domestic violence doesn't always look like bruises. When people think of domestic violence, they think of black eyes and broken bones, but it doesn't always show up like that. Sometimes it shows up as constant checking your phone, being told how to dress, getting accused of cheating for texting your own cousin, being isolated from your friends, apologies that don't come with change, and that sick feeling in your stomach when his name pops up on your phone. That's how it starts. And people around you say, it's just how he is, or she's just emotional, or worse, at least he's not hitting you. But abuse isn't just physical, it's emotional, verbal, financial, sexual, and spiritual. And every time we dismiss it, laugh it off, call it passion, or say, that's between them. We're giving it permission to grow. In the US, more than 70 women a month are shot and killed by intimate partners. Let that number sit with you. 70 a month. That's mothers, daughters, sisters, friends. And each one of them had a warning sign before it happened. Each one had a moment when someone could have spoken up, could have stepped in, could have helped her leave. But we don't talk about it until it's too late. We don't post about it until she's in a casket. Let's be honest, why do so many people stay? Because people say, just leave, like it's easy. But they don't know the truth. Victims of abuse are often financially trapped. They're told no one else will want them. They have kids to protect, they've been manipulated for years, and they're scared, not just of getting hit, but of getting killed. The most dangerous time for a woman is when she finally tries to leave. So many women stay because they know, if I leave, he might kill me. But if I stay, maybe he won't. That's the sick math abuse survivors have to do. And if you're watching this, maybe you're in it right now. Maybe you're watching this and something in your chest feels tight. Maybe you're remembering things he said last night. Maybe your friend has a boyfriend who scares you. Maybe your sister's marriage looks fine on the outside, but she flinches when you hug her. Listen to that feeling. That's not drama, that's your gut. Trust it. Because Ketora probably had that same feeling too, but she still went. She still tried to keep the peace. And now, she's gone. To the men watching this, if you've ever said, if I can't have her, no one will. If you've ever punched a wall instead of having a conversation, if you think jealousy means love, you don't need a relationship. You need help. You are not weak for feeling angry, but you are dangerous when you don't deal with it the right way. Real men don't control. Real men don't manipulate. Real men don't kill the woman they say they love. We shouldn't know her name like this. Ketora Denise Feazell didn't deserve to be a news story. She deserved to be a mum, to grow old, to laugh, to move on from Marvin, to heal. She was only 28. She should be here. And now she's not. All because of a man who couldn't handle rejection. So we don't just remember her death, we remember her life. We say her name, and we fight like hell to make sure this doesn't happen again. If you're still here watching this, thank you. Now do one more thing. Share this story. Check on your friends. And if you're in something toxic, get out while you still can. Before you scroll away, do one thing that actually makes a difference. Tap that subscribe button, not just for this story, but for every voice that can't speak for themselves anymore. And tell us in the comments, what city or state are you watching from? Let Ketora's family and every survivor out there see that people from all over are listening. Let them feel the support. And here's the question I need you to answer honestly. Have you ever seen a red flag in someone and ignored it? Drop your city. Share your truth. Even just one word. Because silence protects the wrong people, and your voice might help save someone else. I'll see you in the next one.